Yo, 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 welcome everybody. Good to have you back. It's been a while since my last live stream, I think over a month at this point. So I'm excited to do this for you guys again. Let's make sure everything's working good. Drop a comment if you're here joining us today. We got a lot of cool things to talk about in this one. We're going to be talking about Tron. The entire ecosystem is booming over there. And so if you haven't bridged, highly recommend that you do that. I'm going to be talking about a couple other chains as well that I think that we're going to see a big rotation in once this market really starts to move. Bitcoin's breaking out today. Everything looks bullish. Everything we want to see happening so far is playing out. So we're going to see what the charts are showing, look at everything up and down, and then I'm going to go through you guys' questions as well. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Wait a second, get everybody rolling in through here. But yeah, the big thing I've been looking at right now is Tron. I just bridged money over the last week, and we've been accumulating a lot of different things over there, mainly meme coins, because realistically, there's not a lot of protocols built on a significant amount of these different projects. So what we're going to end up seeing on a lot of these different chains, whether they're a layer one, whether they're a layer two, we're going to see the rotation take place where the native chain token is going to break out. Doesn't matter which one that is. And, I don't think it's such a big worry that we should be, focused on that as much as just finding which one is and then getting our money, if we have any extra money, to just rotate over them and kind of more or less just playing a game of musical chairs. Because if you guys were around in 2017, which I'm sure a lot of you guys weren't. Most people weren't around in 2017. But in 2017, what we ended up seeing was just money kind of rotating throughout a bunch of different narratives. Same thing happened in the last cycle if you were trading that, between DeFi, between NFTs, things like that. I think that this cycle we're going to have more of those narratives than ever before. But one of the big rotations that I expect to see play out is more or less what happens when all of the native chain assets start to blow up. And then you kind of have this mini alt season taking place on 50 to 100 different chains. That's what I think is going to be the most profitable point of this cycle. And so what we end up seeing in the short term is, as all of these new chain tokens are blowing up, the ecosystem starts to really take off. And I think that that's going to be the big way to make a lot of money is, finding some of the top projects built on these different chains right at the beginning before they take off, because a lot of these native chain assets themselves, they're already worth multiple billions in market cap. So not the most lucrative investments, not the type of thing that you'd really want to spend a lot of time wasting on and chasing. But for anything else, whatever it might be on these other chains, there is a lot of good projects that are more undervalued. Doesn't really matter which narrative that you're following. But for me, the most obvious ones are always DEXs. It's where everybody goes to trade their money. But on Tron, there really isn't any native DEXs aside from the ones that Justin Sun has built himself. So really the main thing over there is meme coins that we've been watching. So let's just jump into some of those right off the bat. Been in Tron since 2017. That's what's up, man. Honestly, Tron's been around for a long time, but most people have completely forgot about it. Most people have forgotten about all the 2017 altcoins. But truth be told, if we come over and look at them, let's see here. So this is the meme coin on Tron. This is Sundog. This is the main one. And it's just recently flipped the prior all-time high and retested it as new support. So this thing looks like it's just about ready for price discovery. But if we're looking at the actual chart of Tron, come down in here. Let's go to a weekly time frame. If we look at the chart of Tron, it's just been ripping pretty much the entirety of this bull run. Very much just consistently outperforming a lot of things. And in any of the corrections, they've just been small. All the dips have been getting bought up really quickly, honestly more than almost any other altcoins. And one of the things that I always tell you guys to watch for in certain tokens are when they have a huge burn rate. So the reason why so many tokens outperform many of the other ones in the market is because they'll have a significant burn rate. It's the reason why Binance coin in the early days did so well. It has a huge burn rate, and Tron is actually higher than Binance coin. And so with Tron, we had that 2017 bear market. It bottomed at the very ending of that COVID capitulation. But truth be told, after the bottom of that, we've been really outperforming a lot of different things. 2021 wasn't the biggest cycle for a lot of altcoins. A lot of the 2017 altcoins specifically made lower highs. But after that point, Tron's just been steadily increasing in value. And not only that, but the bear market that we experienced, it only corrected 75%. So realistically, we kind of held the same support that we first originally corrected to all the way at the beginning of the cycle top when Tron corrected from let's see, this would have been 65K. So Tron peaked at that 65K top for Bitcoin. When Bitcoin ran to 69,500, it made a lower high. So, in the last cycle, it underperformed a lot of things. But overall, as we're getting into this new cycle, it's interesting how new narratives kind of pick back up again, and how many people will write off certain, tokens, certain projects, whatever it is. And then you'll see these things kind of come around maybe 4, 5, 6+ years later down the line. Tron's been around for a long time, going all the way back to that 2017 cycle. And so if we're talking about Binance getting slapped with that $4 billion lawsuit, we've also got, CZ having to step down from his CEO position. That is really going to have damper things a lot, in my opinion. And we're just kind of seeing where that money is diversifying to. It's leaving, it's rotating out of Binance Coin. And I do think that Tron's going to have a pretty good opportunity of really rising a lot. And so as Tron's been breaking out here, making these big moves, coming all the way back up to its highs of the last cycle, we're seeing a lot of their different altcoins built on Tron doing well. Sundog was kind of the first one, and this thing got listed basically everywhere. It's on BitMEX, HTX, MEXC, Bybit. All of the major exchanges have listed this, which is why I also kind of lean towards this being such a good opportunity in the short term. With it just breaking out of those prior all-time highs and retesting this, we've seen this happen a number of different times with different meme coins on the market. WIF was a good example of this when WIF really started running. I don't know where the longest chart of WIF is, but if we come over here and take a look at it, I wouldn't be surprised if this one ends up being pretty much the longest we have. So if we're looking at the MEXC chart, this is oftentimes one of the first exchanges that these sort of meme coins will list on right before they get really big. And so that's kind of an early indication for how well a new meme coin is going to end up doing. If they already have some big exchange listings, the difference is, what we saw with WIF when it first got listed on all of these exchanges is it kind of made this little corrective period. But once it broke out, it really just started running in a big way. And so if we were to see kind of the same sort of thing play out once more, looking at Sundog today, let's see, let me copy this chart back over. So if we go, where is it? So if we go with the bars pattern, and we grab Sundog over here, take it back to what we're seeing with WIF, overall, we could end up seeing a lot of the same sort of things play out inside of this consolidation as well. Whenever it starts to actually break out, because we don't know if this thing's back over in here still, how far behind and it's going to lag, or, if Bitcoin starts really breaking out soon, I honestly think that all of these markets are just going to take off in a big way. So, we could be more over inside of this type of, consolidation. But regardless, if we're looking at what happens to every one of the major chains whenever their native meme token starts to blow up, they always end up doing this. WIF, was the biggest outperformer. Sundog over on Tron is going to kind of have that first mover's advantage. And, we looked at WIF hitting multiple billions in market cap. I think it was like 3 billion market cap, if not higher than that, when we were at some of these higher price points. And where we're at right now with Sundog is like 340 million in market cap. So, talking if it was to hit a 10x from here, you'd be sitting at the overall same price point as what we saw with peaking out over in here. So it all is relative. And this is why I say that the best thing we can do is just kind of follow which chains are going to be blowing up first. And right now we're seeing a big rotation taking place into these Tron meme coins. And I do have a lot of confidence that if we're to see the market start taking that next leg up, that's the point where we're going to have a lot more profit coming in. Because when we're looking at Bitcoin, the exciting thing about Bitcoin as a whole, if we take the time to just zoom out here, every single time that Bitcoin goes into that new all-time high for the first time in the cycle, that's always when all of the major altcoins that outperform everything perform the best. We can pull up Bitcoin up here, and then we can take, something like let's look at Phantom Network. This is kind of what I talked about in one of my last videos. If we're looking at Phantom Network, I bought this token all the way back down at the beginning of its impulse over in here. Can't remember the exact price, but it was basically in this consolidation there. And when we're looking at this thing, it still ended up making a correction, coming all the way back down to my break-even price. But the thing is when we're looking at Bitcoin, if we're comparing both of these charts right over in here, the second that Bitcoin made its all-time high breakout, which was during in this period here, it was this same exact time that this thing bottomed and then started making that next big breakout right there. So when we're looking at these things, the altcoins that are going to outperform everything, that are going to perform the biggest inside of their first breakouts, that go the most parabolic, I should say, that's going to all take place right inside of that first major breakout for Bitcoin, going into a new all-time high. And we can look back at 2017 altcoins and see the same thing. Regardless of your opinions of what that last cycle was, we had peak euphoria for the most part inside of that first little breakout when Bitcoin peaked at 65K. Even though Bitcoin went into another new all-time high here, and many other altcoins like Solana, like Phantom, Terra Luna, many of the top performing altcoins, they went for a brand new all-time high as well. However, this was a lot more of a different type of consolidation than what 2017 was, where 2017 had a much more consistent, blow off top type of market cycle. However, when we're comparing what happened with Bitcoin in 2017, we can look at some of these old altcoins and see a lot of the same similarities in structure. Stellar Lumens is a really good example, which if I can find the long-term chart, it'll show you guys kind of the same similarities where Bitcoin goes down and sideways for a long time. Stellar comes all the way kind of towards the mid to tail end of the 2014 bear market for Bitcoin. So we're looking at this, and it only just went sideways and down. Even when Bitcoin started uptrending all the way back up to those prior all-time highs, we draw a line right here. We go all the way to the point where we finally made a new all-time high, which would technically be in this breakout. I'm not counting this small little peak above. But regardless, where Stellar Lumens was in that point was right here. We had just broken out, made our first true breakout, kind of flipped our bear market bottom as new support right there. And then the second Bitcoin made a much bigger move into new all-time highs, going from 850 all the way up to 3K. That was the move for Stellar Lumens, where it just went vertical into price discovery. And that was every other altcoin in 2017. Even Ethereum, is a good example. We can look at every altcoin in 2017 because the market cap was so small and see that they all followed each other. And this was pretty much the formation that they all ended up taking if we're comparing, each and every one of those market cycles. Ethereum was one that kind of outperformed first. It did what Solana did in the last cycle. And, it made a much bigger move than many of the different tokens. And it was a much more consistent uptrend all the way throughout that entire cycle. So we're looking at these things. But the big thing I want you guys to know is Bitcoin will make its first big breakout into a new all-time high, regardless of is this 2017 or is this, our last cycle in 2021. They've all done this, where Bitcoin makes its first breakout into price discovery. All of the altcoins run super, super hard. Some of them are going to even be outperforming in the earlier portion of the bull market, which we've seen. There's been a few altcoins. Injective Protocol is one that comes off the top of my head that is, kind of really outperformed a lot of altcoins in the early portion of this bull market. So as we're getting into that next breakout into price discovery, all of these altcoins are going to go through probably the biggest markup period that we're going to see this cycle. Now, I don't know how big the blow off top is going to be, because I do expect that once Bitcoin makes a breakout upwards of 100K and we get our first major pullback, that's going to be really where all these altcoins make their, huge runs into price discovery as well. And then they also pull back 60, 70, 80+% inside of that first correction. It happened in our last cycle. It happened in 2017. The only difference was in our last cycle, we got this big run to 65K, and then it was a massive pullback kind of in the middle. And so it was a much bigger type of midway sell-off than what we ended up seeing in 2017. 2017 just had a lot of 30 and 40% pullbacks the entire way up. This one, didn't really have any sort of significant pullback until the initial top at 65K. And then it pulled back 65% inside of that one move. So it was a much bigger type of shakeout, but relatively the same sort of events where, we got some type of mid sell-off shakeout into new all-time highs. And then we ended up having one more final run even after that. It's the same thing that happened in 2017 leading into our final run. It's just that the price action itself, differenced itself slightly. So as we're looking at this cycle, seeing Bitcoin right here on the verge of a breakout into new all-time highs, I believe that we're going to see the same thing. I don't know what are going to be the massive outperforming altcoins this cycle. We obviously have our inclinations. I obviously like a lot of layer 2 protocols. I like a lot of projects built on layer 2s, and I've, made lots of updates, whether we're talking about GMX, whether we're talking about, Metis and some of the tokens built on these chains. As a whole, we're going to see a lot of the same events play out. And so the one universal thing that I've noticed over the course of me trading these cycles has been Once Bitcoin goes into price discovery, that's where we're going to see a huge markup period. And then, everybody's going to get excited. We're going to have a lot of hype in the same ways that we did leading into our ETF approvals, as well as when Bitcoin ran into a new all-time high in March of this year. We saw a lot of, influencers getting on board with crypto, big celebrities launching meme coins and things like that. That's all kind of early signals for what's coming in the next portion, because a lot of people are bearish right here. A lot of people are really worried about everything playing out in a bearish way. But, the way I'm looking at the markets and the way that the markets look in my eyes, what we're seeing here is this first breakout that's about to be taking place. Whenever that happens, we're going to see that. And then that's going to be where we see that huge upswing in a lot of different altcoins, where they kind of went from doing nothing to then just going vertical into price discovery. It happens every bull market. Now, I'm not saying that every altcoin is going to do that. Even though I've talked a lot about how I believe this is going to be the cycle like 2017, it's likely that we're going to see certain ones outperform others. And there is going to be certain narratives that dominate more than other ones. And that's why I kind of say, the most obvious way to play this, if you're not super sophisticated with knowing all of the different technical terms with crypto, understanding different narratives, multiple different types of technologies, and, different, you have real world assets, you have AI, you have a million different narratives that you can trade this cycle. And so if you don't really know which one to follow, I think that the easiest solution is literally just to see which chains are going to blow up, which ones are leading the market, and then diversify into some of those top narratives. Memes are obviously a huge narrative. I know that they're silly to the majority of people. I mean, they're silly to everybody, but that's just the speculative type of market that we're in. We're already seeing meme coins blowing up so early into the cycle. So as we're looking at Bitcoin kind of following to with its normal pattern, leading into this being our first breakout into true price discovery, because I'm not counting any of this as a true breakout. All of this closed below our prior all-time highs, and we've been inside of this kind of bull flag corrective pattern ever since. However, the second this next breakout, whenever that takes place, finally gets us outside into price discovery, that's where I think that we're going to see a significant amount of markup in the market. So all we can really do is just be prepared for that one scenario. And then if we kind of are, I think that we have the opportunity of just playing it easy and seeing which chains are just outperforming the other ones, which ones are getting a lot of hype, and then kind of following along with trading into some of those. You obviously don't want to be late. There's going to be a lot of people kind of rotating around, but this is kind of the scenario that I think is going to do really, really well when we start seeing a lot of these markets breaking out. So I just rambled for a long time. Let me read some of your guys' comments for a second. Donovan, what exactly is the final year? Where do you see the time frame for the blow off top? The time frame for the blow off top, assuming that we're going to follow a normal 4-year cycle, which at the end of the day, when we're tracking 4-year cycles, you're not technically trading them based off of the cycle peak. The cycle peak has almost no relevance for the most part. There is a little bit of relevance, obviously, but it's not something that we're really tracking the time frames of as much. The way you manage or the way you measure a cycle is from peak low of the bear market to peak low of the bear market. So you're never measuring it from the height of wherever the market cycle peaks from. Although we look at Bitcoin and we see that it has peaked at the exact same points every cycle. So there is obviously a correlation there. The big thing we have to be aware of is when it comes time for taking profits, we can't only focus on where we're assuming that the cycle top is going to be. Now, where I do believe that the cycle top is going to occur will be sometime mid to end of 2025. So we really are kind of in the final stretch of this cycle. And that's why I say, I think that Bitcoin's going to be making its first breakout into a new all-time high. And it's at that moment where we're going to be really starting in that next portion of the cycle, which is leading us into some type of parabolic top. That's what, historically speaking, has always happened every bull market. And I do lean towards that playing out once again. Now, assuming we follow a normal cycle, then that would be ending up taking us, the last 2 cycles followed the same time frames. If we just followed those time frames, it would be like October of 2025, the very ending of that year, that would be our projected cycle top. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. Maybe we're getting into the latter end of that summer. And then as we're getting into the latter end of that summer, maybe we get into the fall point, maybe later fall. Nobody really knows at the end of the day. But I can say that with a lot of confidence, if we're just simply taking profits, understanding the relative time frames and, historically speaking, where the cycles have topped from, we can't really go wrong taking profits. Because, guys, where we're at really isn't that far different than prior cycles. Yeah, we've had a much quicker run to begin where we're at right now, but it's the time frames aren't that different. The cycle doesn't really look that different. Altcoins haven't done anything. Bitcoin hasn't made a new all-time high in a significant way like it has in prior cycles. But where we're at is kind of the same point that we've been at in the prior cycles right before they also went into a new all-time high. So it's not that different. So we can't be sitting here thinking that, oh, this is the worst cycle ever, or, this is never going to happen. It's going to end up following pretty consistently to those prior cycles. The only question comes is, are we going to have a cycle top at the ending of 2025, or is it going to be a little bit more shortened? And at the end of the day, I don't really know. But with us looking at our cycle, knowing that the second Bitcoin goes into new all-time highs, it doesn't take very long until we're at the true cycle top, just judging the last cycles, right? We know that once Bitcoin goes into a new all-time high, there isn't a significant amount of time that it spends in that price discovery point before we end up leading to some sort of cycle top. So when I'm factoring in all of this, I'm more or less just looking at it in the way where, we can't really go wrong taking profits regardless of whether it's the midpoint of 2025 or whether you stretch it out closer towards the end or just do a little bit of both throughout. That's probably the safest scenario, just laddering out in consistent ratios. Because, the big thing is how much money you leave on the table, because the prices get ballooned to crazy valuations that they don't exist. A lot of people are looking at things in terms of market cap when, you could have this token that you've been a part of, you make 100x gains on it, but there might only be, a few $100,000 worth of liquidity to sell. There's going to be a huge liquidity crisis that takes place if you wait until the tail end of the cycle to begin exiting, because that's when everybody else is doing it at the same time. So as long as you're getting out into the bull market, you're going to have to guarantee, just know for a fact that you're going to sell something and it's going to happen and you're going to feel like you missed out. Like, I sold it too early, even though you could have made, a 10x or a 50x, something crazy like that. You still are probably going to feel like you missed out on a lot of the gains. And that's just the way that the cycles work. They're always going to end up, going a little bit higher than you expect. You're never going to nail the exact top or buy into the exact bottom. But if you're just getting out into the bull market, guaranteeing that you've made profit that you can now take and go and put into a completely brand new asset class, pay off debt. I don't know. Everybody's situation is different, but you're guaranteeing that you have money set aside that you can go back into a new bull market, assuming Bitcoin has another massive 1-year bear market or a year and a half bear market. We don't know yet, but you're guaranteeing you have profit that you can now go back and accumulate, guaranteeing that you have even more money to compound into a new bull market. So you can't get so greedy thinking that everything's just going to go up forever, because we all know that it doesn't. And the amount of money that you'll leave on the table just by waiting until that first big sell-off of the bear market, it's a huge amount. And so you just want to have preparation, even if you're somebody that sold mid 2025 and you watched the market run all the way until the end of 2025 and you kind of missed out on a good portion of the profit. Just be aware that the second that the market sells off and we have a true bear market, the market's going to correct way lower than where you even sold. And that's just what happens every time. I think that the next bear market is going to be the worst one of all time. And, as long as we're not holding throughout that, we're good, because there's a lot of other, great investment opportunities outside of crypto that I've been able to find. And that's why I'm not so solely focused on crypto anymore. I fault myself for not taking as much profit just because of the fact crypto was all I knew. It was like the only thing I've ever known. I dropped out of high school and then started learning how to trade crypto based off of just me watching videos on YouTube. So it was kind of something that I only knew from that point. I didn't have a reference point coming from, other markets where I was like, oh man, I should be selling some of my crypto profit and going into this, or I should be looking into this or that. That to me is where the real value is. And so we just want to remember not to get too tunnel vision, short-term focused on crypto. I understand that it's super profitable, but if we're taking our profit and we're up a significant amount, even if you're up 5 to 10x on your long-term portfolio, that's a lot of profit. So when the market goes into new all-time highs and we're able to realize a lot of this gain, that's what we really should be doing, is thinking more long-term based. If you guys are able to make, I've talked to a lot of you guys, a lot of you have a lot of money in your portfolios, because a lot of you guys are like middle-aged, so you've had a significant amount of time working and investing already. So as I've talked to some of you guys out there, I've noticed that not everybody, but certain people are going to be sitting inside of a, multi-million dollar portfolio. And because you started from a relatively smaller amount and see that those numbers climb so quick, it's going to be hard to actually take those profits. And it always is. But, if you have $1 million and you're able to earn 8 to 12%, that's probably more than a lot of you guys make in a yearly salary. And so that's, obviously $1 million. A lot of people are probably not working with that amount of money. But regardless, guys, I've seen people make a significant amount of profit just off of a few good trades. And when we're getting into this portion where the cycle just starts going into a new all-time high for the first time, this is the point where we've always had all of our preparation. This is the point where we've gained, all of the different tokens that we've invested in, all the things that we've been looking at, trying to find certain narratives that are going to outperform everything. This is the portion of that cycle where we've been in preparation to, realize those gains. And so all we can really do is just watch what happens when Bitcoin goes into price discovery, and then make sure that we're not getting too much tunnel vision and allowing us to actually take some profits this cycle. Because if we're doing that, if you make a lot of profit, make 100x on some random meme coin, you put a few $100, maybe a couple $1,000 in it. That's literally all it takes before all of a sudden you're sitting at valuations in your portfolio that you just didn't think possible. And, call it luck, call it whatever you want. There's certainly a level of luck that exists into crypto because none of us know how high something's going to go. At the end of the day, it's the game of strong hands, who can hold the longest. And that really comes down to luck because we don't know who's going to take profits first. So it's all a fun game, but at the end of the day, just make sure that you're taking profits. Make sure that you're in the process or in the mindset of knowing I got to take my profits, because if I'm able to make 100K, if I'm able to make 500K, if I'm able to make 5 million, I don't know what it is. If I'm able to do any of those things, you don't have to take nearly the same amount of risk that you do with crypto to be able to earn, something that everybody would be able to be happy to live off of. For me, I live pretty frugally. I don't ever do a heck of a lot. So it's like, I could easily live off 100 grand a year passively. It wouldn't change anything that I do. So it's like, I could probably cut that in half and live really easily off 50,000, maybe even less than that. It's kind of hard to say. I don't know for sure. But if I'm looking at all of this stuff, for me, I don't have to make that much money. If I could make $1 million, $2, $3 million and be able to park like a third of that into some sort of low interest rate thing that's more of a safe bet, that to me is something I can live off of. That's not counting real estate opportunities. If you have credit, the ability to be able to, maximize your own fullest potential without actually spending your own cash. There's a lot of opportunities that come, but you got to make sure you sell. Otherwise, you kind of just lose out on the potential of even doing any of those things, if that makes sense. So I've rambled the entirety of this entire live stream, but this is what I think is the most important to talk about, truly. I think that, most people haven't been around for a lot of cycles. Most people haven't made a significant amount of mistakes. At the end of the day, I've made so many mistakes that I, wish I didn't, but that's what's teaching me everything that I possibly have ever learned in crypto. So at the end of the day, it's a good thing. And, what I hear from everybody else talking in the markets, it's just more or less everybody's going to be looking to take profits this cycle. Everybody's really happy and excited to start selling their crypto, specifically people that have been here for a long time, people that have been in crypto for 5, 6, 7, even, upwards of 10 years. Those are the type of people that are looking at this cycle being the one where they can finally take profits. And so I think that now more than ever, if we have that frame of mind where, hey, if we don't take profits, we're going to get dumped on and we'll lose out on every single opportunity that we ever used to have to be able to, go into a different market, to be able to buy a new house, to be able to buy real estate properties that you could flip, or whatever the heck your long-term goals are. We got to make sure that we're taking our profit. Otherwise, it's just never going to happen. Because I'm telling you guys, the second we get that first big drop in the bear market, it wipes out all of those profits in a significant margin. We just got to be prepared for that. I think the manipulation in the last cycle by FTX with their attack on Luna knocked out the blow off top fifth wave and has so skewed everyone's views that this cycle will catch most by surprise. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it for sure, because I'd have to agree. FTX, that was the thing about the last cycle. It was really just a lot of like over leveraged players. And, when we're looking at FTX manipulating the market, they were actively net short Bitcoin. and then they were buying Solana with their Bitcoin. Anybody that was depositing Bitcoin onto FTX, they were literally just selling their Bitcoin to buy Solana. So they didn't have any Bitcoin reserves on their actual exchange. That's what they were doing, was just manipulating their own market. So we're looking at a lot of that last cycle kind of just being this silly little thing leading into, ultimately whenever, I mean, it was in the bear market to the point where Binance actually completely killed FTX. But I honestly think that last cycle could have been a lot more hyped, but there was just a lot of negative factors. The manipulation, not even talking about the global pandemic where we just did not have the same amount of buy pressure. People were just, trying to survive during that period and not lose their jobs. So when we're looking at all of that, this cycle doesn't have all of those negative stipulations attached, assuming that we're not in some sort of major war. But, war can also be profitable. So we don't really know how all of the, geopolitical things are going to affect crypto this cycle. But if we're talking about quantitative easing starting back up again, which is probably likely, historically speaking, the second that money printer turns on, the markets just rise. That's, at the end of the day, it sucks, but that's really what we're waiting on, is just for the Fed to start printing more money. That's kind of the big driver of value in crypto. And that's the unfortunate thing about investing into crypto, is it's like, crypto obviously outperforms the rate of inflation. But when we're talking about this stuff, crypto goes up because they just print more money. And a lot of these are like capped supplies, deflationary. So it's like by default, the more that the liquidity rises, the more that the prices of everything are going to rise too. So they're just pumping everything through the creation of new debt. So it's not really like any of this holds true in any sort of significant way. Crypto is obviously going to outperform the rate of inflation significantly, but this kind of all just leads to nowhere in the grand scheme of things. So it's going to be interesting what happens over the next like 10, 15 years. We're really not that far off from the true collapse of the dollar. So if we're talking the collapse of the dollar, some new currency being resurrected out of those ashes, at that point, it's probably going to be really crappy, and it's going to be some currency manipulated and ran by some private government that just runs everything. That would be the guess that I have for crypto. I was always one of those people that was like, oh man, crypto is going to unite everything. We're going to break the banks. We're going to do all of this good stuff. But all of these people just ultimately ended up using crypto for like the wrong reasons. And realistically, if we have a government that comes in and regulates this stuff, and they make you attach like your identity towards your addresses and wallets, which are guaranteed to happen at some point, we just have less privacy than ever before, because then the government can see everything on chain. So maybe there's anonymity layers that get added, maybe there's tokens that we can actually end up trading, but I don't think that that's going to be the case. I've always viewed that I viewed crypto as being a good thing in the early days, but the more I've seen it kind of progress, the more I've realized that chances are it's probably going to be worse off than any of the other currencies. It's just that, yes, we can now transact on a global scale and peer-to-peer and all of these things. But at the end of the day, if like all of that's still controlled by a government, then it indirectly just becomes worse, or directly just becomes worse than anything that we ever had up to that point. Any updates on launch? Yes, sir. 2 new projects coming that they're finally going to end up having on the Launchpad. So anybody that wants to get access to those, there's going to be Robits, which is also going to be like on like multiple Launchpads. So that one's going to be pretty big. That's going to be more or less run by Sensei Partners. They've gone and developed that and are working on the game and all of that stuff. So that's something, if you want to be able to invest in, they're going to be having coming through the pad. And then they've also got the do you guys know what pump.fun is? It's the thing that everybody's using to launch tokens on Solana. And, they just launched one on Tron called pump.sun or sun.pump, something like that. I think it's pump.sun, but I don't know. Anyways, it's one of Justin Sun's that he just launched. Pulse Launch is creating one of those for Pulsechain, and then potentially they could, bring that over to multiple chains. I'm not sure exactly how that's all going to work, but yeah, those are going to be the 2 projects that are actually coming to the Launchpad. So overall, at the end of the day, token price, everything's just going to go up the second that the market shifts, because Pulsechain as a whole is all down. Everything's been sold off pretty hard. So once everything starts making that next big run up, then that's when I expect everything else to just reverse. At the end of the day, everything's just waiting on new liquidity. it's the game of musical chairs. Everybody's always waiting on new liquidity. New liquidity doesn't really enter the market unless you're in some key narrative that gets a lot of adoption at the beginning, or whether you're inside of some or whether it's once we actually get into new all-time highs. So that's kind of the thing with a lot of these tokens, specifically Launchpads, considering you don't want to even launch projects when the market is down. It just doesn't make sense because the liquidity is constantly leaving. So all of that is really being timed with the market. They're not going to launch a project while everything's down and still choppy. They're going to wait until the market starts rising, because then that gives everybody the best advantage to be able to profit as a whole, between the projects succeeding and then the token holders also being able to be happy and making profit too. How will we know when Pepe Unchained will allow us to sell the coin? You can tag Pepe Unchained on Twitter, and they'll literally, like some help guy will literally find it and then answer your questions. Just don't give like wallet information or anything like that, obviously, because like I don't know if you guys have ever tried to ask a question inside of a Telegram chat, but the second that you ask a question, you've got like 3 people DMing you in the side saying that they're this person that's here to help you and all of that, only for them to try and steal your money. So the issue with all of this stuff in crypto is the fact that there's so many scams. You never know what to trust with your emails. You don't know who to trust between your messages. You know, there was people that literally completely duplicated the Pulse launch Telegram chat and had all of everybody's, like all of the mods, they had their like fake duplicated accounts inside of the group, and they were like talking like there was some airdrop going on. And I was even confused. I was like, what the heck? Why didn't I hear about this? And it's just because everything's, you know, a scam. So there is some guy on Twitter that if you just tag Pepe Unchained and like ask that question, he'll pop up and then he'll be able to answer your questions. But once again, if he asks you to like sign a transaction or like connect your wallet to anything, chances are it's a scam. And at that point, I just like comment under my post on, you could actually email me. My email is linked in the description of my video. So you could do all of those things and I'd be able to help you out. Just reach out. Let's see here. Let's go through some tokens. Do you guys have any actual tokens you want covered? Any analysis, any questions, thoughts, concerns? I know that you guys have asked some things up to this point, but if there's any specific charts that you need covered. Oh my gosh, I remember when you first said something about this. Peter Parker Bush did 9/11 Kirby Pepe. What the crap? All right, let me change my. Peter Parker Bush did 9/11. Oh, it's on Pulsechain. I forgot. Well, I think it failed any potential. Yeah, it failed any Elliott wave count. So whenever the last time I covered this, we saw 5 waves up. So now this entire thing has broken back down below wave 1. So that invalidates any sort of wave count. And there is some new volume coming in here. So maybe this is a short-term impulse. What you oftentimes will see in new tokens that launch, sometimes they'll correct all the way back down, and then you'll see one final capitulation, you know, a little bit below kind of that initial listing price low. That happens sometimes before a local low is found. So at the end of the day, if we can hold this support at 001286, at that point, I think we could actually reverse, but it's kind of got to hold that, because if we were to lose that, come back below, this becomes resistance, you know, it can kind of indefinitely fall to just small increments. So at that point, it's kind of just hard to say exactly what it's going to do. What do you think about Magic? I love Magic. Let's look at some Magic. I still have all of mine that I've been holding since forever and ever, waiting for it to do its thing when Arbitrum season starts to go up. As you can see, thought that was going to play out, and it didn't. But overall, all it's pretty much done is just held this exact same support. It reminds me a lot of like Ethereum in the last cycle when everything just kind of went up and down and sideways. This in and of itself kind of looks like a repeat of this pattern over here, or a repeat. I don't know why I said it like that. It's like a Wyckoff type of accumulation. It looks a lot like Metis DAO right before it started breaking out. So chances are this is going to be the low considering we're sitting on support, but it looks a lot like Metis right before it had its first breakout when it was consolidating inside of this exact same type of Wyckoff accumulation right here. And then we had that first breakout. And it's obviously sitting back down here as well, but same type of consolidation that I think that Magic is in. So that's kind of what I would be watching, at least in the shorter time frames. Because once this thing breaks out, it's just going to make a quick, it'll probably do something like that where we get these couple corrections just kind of flipping back above resistance levels. But that's the main thing. If we can get back above this $1.51 mark, then I think that this thing's going to pretty much just teleport into a new all-time high, because that'll be the first true support and resistance flip that we ever had. I thought that back down in here was going to be that same type of a move when we had broken out of descending resistance, when we started to actually break back above these horizontal resistance levels and flip them as new support. But we obviously flipped bearish once again when the market started correcting so much. So as that point is coming, what looks to be to a close, and it does look like Bitcoin's ready to finally start making that next move into new all-time highs. At that point, I expect that we're going to be basically doing something like this. So that's what I'm watching out for with Magic. OP, and then Rap Dog. All right, I'm excited to talk about Rap Dog. That one looks good. OP, let's go take a peek. So if we're looking at optimism looks, pretty consistent with how it's always looked. More or less just been holding the same type of trend line. And technically, this is more of a despair type of phase where, you have this main trend line and you're holding it all the way up, and then you make one final capitulation below that. That's pretty consistent with a market cycle. And this entire thing is just inside of a big broadening wedge type formation. So when I'm looking at this, it looks kind of like what Litecoin did in 2017 before its blow off top. It looks like what a lot of altcoins will do when they're just kind of trending inside of this channel. And as it gets more and more broad, it usually takes about 3, 4 peaks, but you'll see it kind of do this thing where it starts getting bigger and bigger, and then that'll lead to some type of major type breakout into new all-time highs. That's what I think is going to end up playing out for optimism. The only thing with optimism is the market cap's a little high, and then if we're looking at the TVL, it's kind of dropped off significantly in terms of TVL. So at the end of the day, layer twos as a whole have kind of taken the back seat. We're seeing a lot more layer ones taking off in the short term, but I still think optimism is going to do really well. I'm more optimistic on like the tokens built on optimism's chain. That's always been what I think is going to perform the best. So now let's go look at Rap Dog, because this thing looks fire. It looks like it's about ready to start moving. It's already up 14% today, actually. Oh, wow, it's bounced nicely. So when I'm looking at Rap Dog, it looks exactly like FWOG. And FWOG was one that's been, pumping pretty good over the last little while. But overall, this is going to be something that you see with a lot of these meme coins. It's really hard to know which meme coins are going to do so good, but you can't really go wrong with Rap Dog, because the one thing that you can't recreate with a meme coin that is what separates profitable ones from unprofitable ones is the community. And I've not seen a community like Rap Dogs in a long time. It's just full of people that they don't even have a Telegram group. But if you made a post about Rap Dog, there'd be 20 likes on it almost instantly. It's crazy. And that type of community is 100% organic. So that's what you want to see with these type of communities, an organic approach, a lot of hype on Twitter, people talking about it, constantly engaging with everybody's new posts. They're always doing raids on new posts. And that's what you want to see with these new meme coin communities. And when we're looking at how these prior cycles have kind of consolidated, this to me just looks exactly like FWOG right before it made that big breakout. And we made one more retest of that exact support. So as Bitcoin is starting to break out, I expect the second that Bitcoin makes a big move, a lot of these meme coins will also make their moves And Rap Dog is one that's kind of more obvious to me, at least, just because, I mean, like I said, guys, the organic community that exists around this project is insane. So I think that thing's going to moon in a big way. We're talking a lot of these making that first big breakout. A lot of that's like a 3 to a 10x, depending on the different tokens. So could be a very profitable one to be watching for. Let's see. Ooh, good question. Thoughts and analysis on Sui. I don't know if you know anything about the Sui ecosystem, but I've also been building positions in some of them. You should drop some of your favorite tickers that you've actually bought already. I just bought Cetus today. That was one that I'm really excited about. So let's actually go look at Cetus because this thing is freaking fire. Hopefully they have the whole price. Sui, Cetus. Cetus USDT. Let's go. Actually, let me switch my. We're gonna go to here. Okay, so here's Cetus. This is the DEX that I bought. This is the main DEX over on Sui. So Sui, if we look at the price of Sui, for you guys that don't even know what Sui is a layer one, and it's its own chain. So it's kind of like Solana, where notice how like most of the chains are all EVM compatible, where you can like go to Uniswap or like go to MetaMask or something, and you've got like you can bridge really easy with like a number of different chains. Like they're all compatible basically with a certain software wallet. Well, with non-EVM chains like Solana, you have to use like their own sort of technology that's been built specifically for Solana or for Sui or anything like that. So it's a non-EVM chain, which makes it a little bit more difficult to bridge funds over. But you know, it really wasn't that hard. It was just the fact that I had to find new websites and new, like, I don't know, apps, I guess you could say, new, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. You guys probably get the point though. But with Sui, this is one I think is going to really outperform a lot of different projects. And I think that people should be aware that Sui in and of itself has a high market cap. It's like 2.5 billion or something like that. So it's got a lot of market cap. Upside potential is going to be smaller. They have token unlocks, all of the initial investors into the projects, all of that dumb stuff. So if you really want to find the best projects, just buy the infrastructure, the top meme coins, just things like that. Like the DEX, for example, of Sui is Cetus. And Cetus is one that I'm really bullish on because I do believe it's just going to follow the price of Sui, but it's going to outperform it, right? So that to me is why this is a better investment. Whenever anybody bridges over to a new chain, the reason they're bridging to a new chain is to be able to go and trade tokens built on that chain. So the second that they bridge their funds over, where does that money go? It goes to the DEX to be able to trade. What is the main DEX on Sui? Cetus. So, I mean, that's the most obvious investment I make on new chains most of the time, not always. I didn't invest into any of the DEXs on Tron. I just bought the meme coins. But a lot of the first buys that I take on a new chain are just going to end up being the DEX, the native token of the DEX, assuming that it has good tokenomics and things like that. But what we end up seeing is when the volume picks up, whenever that chain blows up and gets a lot of hype, we always end up seeing a lot of people rotate money into those DEXs and things. And so I think that this thing is going to run in a big way. The chart looks exactly the same as Sui and arguably has better Elliott waves. I don't know. I'm not going to necessarily call that. But what we're looking at here was 5 waves to the upside. And then we just finished ABC correction back down, A, B, and C. This is forming an inverse head and shoulder formation. This is a one wave impulse and an ABC correction in wave 2. So basically wave 3 is coming, probably going to come all the way back up to wave B, which at like 13 cents. Could see a correction. Chances are I wouldn't be surprised to see something like this. And it could get more parabolic than that, but I think that this is a little bit more reasonable. That's what I think is going to be happening with Cetus. And then this thing's going to absolutely rip into a new all-time high once Sui as a whole starts to break out. So that's what I'm excited about. Let's see. Good to be back, my friend. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I'm sporting a new black eye. After I had my surgery, I was sitting on my recliner and I took a nap. And then I woke up and I was like thinking that I was going to go eat something. And so then I sat up and then I just got really lightheaded. And then like all of a sudden just woke up on the floor and I face planted straight into my floor. And it gave me a black eye and it literally hasn't gone away because it like scabbed. So I just have this permanent black eye on my face now. But yeah, good to be back. Good to be back. Would love to know your opinion on bridge adoption. I think that narrative would be big. Yeah. I just had my girlfriend buy Synapse Protocol, which I shill constantly. I always have you guys asking about it as well, which is a good thing because I shill it all the time. But Synapse Protocol, that to me is just such an obvious one. I've used it a million times. Works great. At the end of the day, it's still just sitting all the way back down here near the range lows that we've been consolidating at, which is, actually why it's a good buy right now. But we've just been consolidating here inside of this massive, pattern for a long time. But most recently, we did finally break outside of that. So over here at the beginning of this year, we did clear our major downtrending resistance. And then all we've done from that point was just kind of flip it as new support. This isn't a failed Elliott wave count because even though it corrects all the way back down and almost fully retraces the move, it still holds a higher high. So technically the Elliott wave count is still exactly the same. 1, 3, and 5. We just had an extended wave 5, which oftentimes leads to bigger corrections on the way back down. But ABC correction all the way back down came nearly to a full retrace, but just corrected back down to that same support. And with us now just kind of retesting this level, probably going to be the last low point that we get a bit buy on this support floor before it really starts to mark up into a new all-time high. This is one of those that I think once it starts to break out, you're just going to see vertical price action as it just goes into a new all-time high. And I'm telling you guys, people make fun of me for saying it, but this is just the way that the cycles work. Altcoins will do absolutely nothing until all of a sudden Bitcoin goes into a new all-time high, and then you wake up and they're just going vertical. It's what happens every single cycle. And that's why I say I literally could care less what happens in the bear market. As the markets are going down, as everything's selling off, I don't care. I don't care if I'm down a bunch in a certain position, because once that position flips, I can't predict where the exact bottom is going to be, but it doesn't matter, because once that position flips and Bitcoin goes into a new all-time high and we see that rotation take place, the amount of profit that is made always outweighs anything that I lost, and it always ends up outperforming anything that I thought would have happened. And that's just, the only focus that I have at this point, because I've been through, this is now going on, this is my 8th year in crypto, going on 9th year. So we're talking about this stuff, and I just have enough patience to kind of deal with it, because I know that the real euphoria happens the second Bitcoin gets into a new all-time high. But Synapse is my favorite bridge, and this thing is looking like an absolutely massive buy opportunity right now in the short term. I like Cetus, but I also like FlowX. Solend has moved onto Sui and created SuiLend. Not into games and NFTs. FlowX. What the heck is that? I wonder if it'll be here. No. All right. I got to go to a different place. Flow. Oh, FLX. Right there. Oh, these are getting a bid. Some fat-fingered a big old buy. Market cap, fully diluted, unknown. So this is another DEX. Yeah, this could be a good one. I don't know if you could count this an Elliott wave. It's really close. It pretty much fully retraced, but I think it technically held support. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Looks a little bit fishy for a Elliott wave impulse, but it doesn't really matter. This has good new volume coming in. Some obviously bought. this thing could easily run super hard. And honestly, there's not a lot in the Sui ecosystem. So it's like, here's Blub, probably the mascot of Sui. Looks like it's running pretty good. It's already ran pretty hard, but at the end of the day, man, it's hard to know how high some of these are going to go, It's always the tricky thing when it comes to trading the meme coins on the new chains. This one could be one that moves, though. It hasn't really had a cycle yet. But honestly, I don't like the fact that the fully diluted is higher. That means I don't know. That one's not very attractive to me. But looking at even some of these other ones, I don't even know what these are, to be honest. This one looks really good in the short term. Sui Kune? What? A water beast, the perfect mascot. See, this is the silly crap you buy, but it's got the fully diluted and the market cap is the same. You don't want meme coins that have unlocks because, that just doesn't even make sense in my eyes. So, but there's obviously meme coins that haven't ran yet, and this will probably run. The second that Sui starts to moon, this thing will probably just start breaking out and going into a new all-time high. So, at the end of the day, this is why I say I would probably just start looking into new chains that haven't taken off yet, because those are going to be ones that see significant types of rallies. Here's another example of one. Soccer Bomb. They're so dumb. It's genuinely retarded. I'm not going to lie. This cycle is just something different. That's for sure. In prior cycles, it wasn't always like this, but we're definitely towards a speculative point of crypto where I think that we're going to be leading to a last blow off top. At the end of my last statement, I meant to say I'm not into the NFTs and games on Sui yet, but with the gaming system Sui has, I expect games, NFTs to do very well. Do you know of an NFT marketplace on Sui? Because honestly, there's always NFTs are in the toilet right now, but there's always going to be certain chains that it's still a good narrative to follow. For example, like Bitcoin, the Bitcoin NFTs. If we come over to like NFT price floor, so I bought a Node Monkey. And the reason I bought a Node Monkey is because these are the very first NFT collection, the first 10,000 character collection of NFTs on the Bitcoin chain. So remember what happened with CryptoPunks in the last cycle, where CryptoPunks peaked at a $250,000 floor price. So the cheapest 10,000 collection, the least rare one, was still worth technically 250 grand at one point. Not to mention, if you had a rarer one, you could have sold it for 500 grand or $1 million or tens of millions. Some of them did sell for that. This was the very first 10K collection on Ethereum. The whole reason it ran so hard was because it was the first, it was the oldest, it's the original. It's got all of this, the collectible aspect of it. Well, Node Monkeys is exactly the same thing, but on Bitcoin's chain. So this cycle, you got to think about how much more money is on Bitcoin's chain than with Ethereum. Bitcoin has, well, technically not on its, chain for like layer 2 stuff, but Bitcoin money, how much money is in Bitcoin, investors into Bitcoin, it's massive. So in the same ways that all of the Ethereum whales began to buy CryptoPunks and Bored Apes and all of this stuff, I do believe that Bitcoin whales are going to do the exact same thing with the Node Monkeys. And, there's going to be other NFTs on Bitcoin that do well. But to me, I think that NFTs are still a really big narrative to follow. And it just kind of matters where you're following it. And for me, Node Monkeys are a very obvious trade. They had one cycle so far. There was one small little NFT run for Bitcoin, and these things peaked at almost a 0.7 Bitcoin. They're currently worth 0.13 Bitcoin. So you could pick one up for like a little over 7 grand, which I know is probably going to be more than most people want to care to invest into an NFT. But I'm telling you guys, if CryptoPunks hit a $250,000 floor price and you could do the exact same thing with the Node Monkey, at that point, it's a little bit more attractive in my eyes. And I do really believe that this is going to be the crypto punks of the Bitcoin chain. So, I do like NFTs, but you got to be like smart where you're placing your money with them, because most of them are garbage and most of them really aren't going to do a heck of a lot. When you see a chart like PTGC making all-time highs, what would be your take profit strategy? Well, sir, let's go look at it. I told everybody that this was going to be the best performing, one of the best performing one, because it already has been up to this point. It's just been absolutely ripping. Look at that thing. Freaking amazing. I told everybody that the second that we got above that white line, it was going to send it, and that's exactly what is happening. Actually, it's, really breaking out even more than I thought it would. So that's the great thing about the tokenomics of this coin, is it's really, really bullish. So with this one, freak, man. It's hard to justify selling this before Pulsechain as a whole has even moved yet. We've had one like mini cycle for Pulsechain. So when I'm thinking of that, it's hard to justify wanting to take profits on this thing until Pulsechain starts really moving, because this thing is just going to keep going up for the most part. I mean, it's only got 31 million in market cap and it's fully diluted. So that deflationary, I mean, it's probably one that you want to hold for a little bit, considering this thing could be a really big winner. This thing could hit a $300 million market cap and you'd be looking at, 10x from here. So some of you guys that I know have bought all the way back down in the beginning of this point. I know some of the people that are like part of this project. So when we're looking at this thing starting to run, I think that now you kind of want to hold it, right? I think we're early enough in this cycle that you're not doing yourself a huge disservice by holding it. Here's the thing about crypto. There's a fine line between being greedy and letting your winners run. It's a very fine line, and I don't know who draws the line, but you can't really see it sometimes. So when it comes to things like this, where you're looking at the entire ecosystem of Pulsechain being at really low points in its cycle, we're looking at Bitcoin going to make a new all-time high for the first time this cycle. It's at that point that probably the most amount of our profit is going to come into this bull run. That's where Pulsechain is going to run. That's where PulseX, Inc., all of those that are going to make their moves, they're going to run in that breakout. So if you're holding something in the ecosystem that's got great tokenomics, got a good community, I guess you could say, and then it starts to run and it's front running everything else, that's just an early sign that, this is going to continue to kind of do more of the same. And so I would personally be waiting to take profits on this. For once Pulsechain, I would just be holding it, to be honest, man. I really think that this thing could be a big winner. And so you don't want to get too greedy profit taking. I'd say, like, if it were to hit a 10x from here, lock up a good amount of profit, because it probably isn't going to run too much harder than that. But at the end of the day, now is kind of when you want to just be, letting the profits run and see how it, or what it turns into. I've DCA'd heavy into each dip, then yeah, you want to just hold it, man. I wouldn't, if you were buying into these dips the whole way down, then I wouldn't probably be trying to sell right now. I'd be looking to hold it for a decent portion, because I really do think that it could be sitting in the multi hundreds of million in market cap. We lost heavy on Hermes, Tethys, Hamachi, and Hex. Yeah, well, that's the thing. The problem with Hex, I've always told people not to buy Hex. Always buy Inc. Always buy PulseX before you ever buy Pulsechain or Hex, because the issue with Hex is it's just kind of a product of last cycle. Now, when it comes to Hermes, Tethys, and Hamachi, all of these are built on layer 2. So layer 2 hype is just really low right now. The second that we get new layer 2 hype, specifically whenever ETH outperforms, that's really where the layer 2s shine. When money rotates into Ethereum, Ethereum's network congests. When Ethereum's network congests, everybody bridges over to layer 2s. When everybody bridges the layer 2s, that's when the protocols built on layer 2s do well. So when we're looking at almost no altcoins really making significant moves, Bitcoin's still below prior all-time highs, can't really expect a lot of things to be moving until, the market actually goes into a new all-time high, because this is the case literally every single bull market. People that get really worried about the short-term profits that and worried about something going down a lot, you have to understand that nothing really goes up that much until Bitcoin goes into a new all-time high. And we really haven't seen much things moving since Bitcoin peaked at the, pretty much beginning of this year. So you just have to have the patience to hold through it, considering, like I stated in the earlier portion of this video, I have no problem stomaching losses on something, because I know the amount of times I've held on to a loss. The second that Bitcoin goes into a new all-time high, then all of a sudden I'm up 10x. Too many times to count. And so for me, I just don't worry about it, because there's a lot of factors that have to go to play with buying some of these things. Buying something at a 5 million, sub $5 million market cap, you almost have to expect to have fluctuations. You could be up 3x in the thing, and then you could be down 80, 90% all at the same time. That's just something that happens, and you have to know what you're actually buying, because that's just part of the process. When you're on the Sui network and the Sui wallet, there are a couple dApps with some game NFT things I haven't looked too hard into, but saw that people are earning tokens, NFTs. See, that could be something that's good. I'm going to have to do some research into it, because I really, really like it. Pulsechain is part of Jolly's cult. Don't buy it. You said Hex and we got dumped on. I literally told people not to buy Hex. And I told people that I sacrificed for Pulsechain all the way back in 2021, it would have been, in the last cycle. So, I'm a product of Pulsechain, because I really do think that we're going to see a lot of profit over there. I built a token over there. So, there's not much more I could, say about it other than that. I do believe in it as much as other people won't. It got dumped on super hard, probably by the fault of Richard Hart fudding, Hex. But at the end of the day, like I said, guys, you're going to have to go through a lot of crap until the market goes into a new all-time high. And then it's the second the market goes into a new all-time high that we see the rotation take place. So if you can kind of get through that point, everything's going to be a lot better. I know it's hard. I'm telling you guys, I've done this. This is now my third bull market, and it's exactly the same as the last two I went through. Obviously there's some variances, but it's not really any different. It's followed a lot of the same similarities. And this is exactly what I had to do in the last bull market before Bitcoin went into a new all-time high. I was holding on to altcoins, weren't doing anything. We're going down. I was down massively on some of those bags. But the second that Bitcoin, that money finally rotates into price discovery, we see those markets start running in a big way. A lot of them have low liquidity. A lot of them have fairly low market cap. It doesn't take that much money to see these things balloon to crazy valuations, especially if they're already sitting at lesser market caps. That's just the way that liquidity works in this game. But y'all, I appreciate you. I really do a lot. Love having you guys in these streams. We've been over an hour, so I need to go and do something. Not really. I don't have anything to do, but I don't want to run too much longer than this. So I appreciate you guys. I love the support. Check out all the coins that we mentioned today, talked about some new ecosystems. Check out Tron, check out Sui, check out some of these networks, because I'm telling you, we're going to see a big rotation take place in Tron very, very soon. And there's a lot of really good meme coins on there that I think are going to be breaking out once that actually takes place. So just be on the lookout. Once again, guys, I appreciate you. I will see you in the next video. With that being said, thank you so much for the support. Take care. Peace out.